Before you lower your standards, watch how the 1% turn their unrealistic dreams into reality. If you feel like you've been doing everything right and you're still stuck, it may be because you were taught goal setting, not goal achievement. Years ago, I was talking to a top Olympic athlete coach, and he gave me this stat, 8%. That is the number, according to research, of people who set big, audacious goals and actually achieve them. Whether it is to enter your dream relationship, or build a profitable multi-million-dollar business that gives you freedom, or healing your body from an ailment, or getting in extraordinary shape, or traveling around the world. So what about the other 92% that don't reach their goals, and what's the difference between the two? While most people talk about goal setting, I really believe the conversation should be around goal achievement. By the way, I'm Jennifer Hudye and my current business, Vision Driven. We have worked with many 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs. And over the last decade myself, I've built 3 7-figure businesses before the age of 30 and worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and leaders. And so I've gotten to study what are the consistent patterns that show up in the top 1%, the 1% that calls their shot and actually makes it. And I've realized it's actually these 3 strategies that consistently show up in most high performers. Strategy number 1 is the top 1% set goals from their future, not their past. So most people are taught to set goals using SMART goals, right? Smart, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. They'll calculate all of the steps of what they're going to do based on the information and the results that they've been able to produce in the past. They rely on time, effort, force, logic. They're very linear and limited-minded. Your current results were created from your past and current state of mind. And so if you go into setting goals from the same identity, you can expect around the same outcomes. One of my favorite stories on this is of the founder and CEO of the junk removal company up in Canada called 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Brian Scudamore. So in the late 1990s, Brian had built 1-800-GOT-JUNK, but it was plateaued at about $1 million a year, several years in a row. No matter the strategies that he was using, he couldn't break through past that level. And so he kept recreating the same year over and over and over. And ultimately what he realized was his original goal was to build $1 million business, and he hadn't set a new expansive goal from there. And so he was at a business event where there was an Olympic athlete talking about how he had won 3 gold medals at the Olympics. And he talked about this visualization process that he used, where he not only visualized himself performing the sport, but also visualizing himself standing on that podium. And that became his anchor, where he reversed everything that he did, all the decisions he made back from that vision. And there was a light bulb moment that went off for Brian, where he's like, if he's doing this in sports, maybe I can do this in my business. And so he went to his family's lake house and he sat and he said, okay, if I had a blank slate, even recreated my entire business from scratch, what would I take? What would I keep? But ultimately, what is the 3-year vision? And he mapped out and he painted a picture of what he wanted his business and life to look like 3 years into the future, as if it's already happened. That originally was called a painted picture, which turned into vivid vision. And what happened next was fascinating, because Brian took that 3-year vision that was very big. It was audacious. He said that he wanted to build a $100 million business in 3 years after he had been plateaued at about $1 million a year. He wanted to build one of the top companies in all of Canada when it came to culture, and to ultimately become the world's #1 junk removal company. And so he got his COO, Cameron Harold, on board, and they rolled out that vivid vision to the team, and they got to work on building it. And fast forward a little over 3 years, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK went on to build a $100 million business, featured in the Harvard Business Review as a company to watch for company culture, named #2 company culture in all of Canada. And he was even featured on Oprah for junk removal, of all things. He talks about how that process of coming up with a vision and reverse engineering back was one of the most important things that he did for his businesses in his life. Fast forward several years, over the last decade, my company and I have helped thousands of entrepreneurs do a similar process called Vivid Vision. Strategy number 2 is the top 1% know how to use their mind as a tool. So most people think their mind just reacts to their life. And the top 1% know that the mind has a set of tools and they use it all day, every day. And for each one of us, we're using our mind in different ways, whether we realize it or not. The difference is, are we using it by default or are we using it for intentional use? One of my favorite concepts around this is Bob Proctor's 6 mental faculties. So he talks about how every human being has our imagination, perception, memory, reason, will, and intuition. Everybody uses them just like we use our 5 senses, our smell, our taste, our touch, but our results depend on how we use them. So for example, every day you're using your imagination, and you may be using your imagination to rehearse worst case scenarios that you're fearful of, or replaying fears over and over again, or picturing all of the ways that things can go wrong, calling it being realistic. But the top 1% don't misuse their imagination. They use it to visualize the future that they want and train their mind, their reticular activating system, over and over again to program their mind for good. They use it to practice and rehearse experiences that they want in advance, of meetings that they want to go well, or deals they want to go well. Your imagination doesn't know the difference between an imagination and reality. It's playing out whatever movie you decide, and then your body reacts to it. Another example is your perception, which is ultimately the meaning that you associate to things. For example, Sarah Blakely, who built the billion-dollar company Spanx, when she started, she entered a billion-dollar industry, and she was constantly faced with the constraint of rejection over and over again. And most people would perceive that as, this isn't for me, and here's a sign of why this isn't gonna work out for me. But instead, she looked as the failure as feedback, of training. Instead of thinking, okay, this is why it's not gonna work out. This means I should stop. This means it's not meant for me. The top 1% do not misuse their mind like that. They think this is information. This is raw material. This is actually resistance training. And the better I get, the more close I am to what it is that I want. Strategy number 3 is the top 1% collect the no's and are here to play the long game for decades, not just years. So most people avoid rejection. The top 1%, they collect the no's and they persevere beyond it. They aren't afraid to fail. The top 1% see every no as being that much closer to the yes. They believe that it strengthens their nervous system capacity. They believe that it's gonna help them get better at the game. They know that it's gonna take them one step closer to other places that other people weren't willing to go. One of the most powerful lessons that I learned was from one of the world's top hypnotists. And he taught this concept of collecting the no. And he said, instead of going into, say, the month and you're like, okay, I have a sales quota and I wanna have 5 people sign up. Yes, he said, what if you shifted to actually collecting the no's so that you could make the big, bold asks without feeling uncomfortable of getting rejected, recognizing that rejection is simply part of the process, and the top 1% don't use that fear of rejection to stop them from asking for what they want. So when you're anchored to a crystal clear vision that pulls you forward, that you're in love with, and when you use your mind intentionally with those mental faculties and use them to help you rather than hinder you, and you recognize that rejection is simply just part of the process, then you're gonna be able to show up and develop the skills and the qualities of the top 1%. The top 1%, they show up recognizing that their dreams are kind of like a gymnasium. You know, each challenge and situation is like the resistance training required in order for you to become the version of you required to build the vision. That's the whole point. At the end of the day, what you're gonna be most proud of is that version of you that needed to come online and develop in order to create those results. So if this resonated with you and you wanna go even deeper on it, check the show notes below. I added a free resource called the Vivid Vision Mind Map. It asks you a series of questions around your life and your business and what is that vision that you want that really pulls you forward. As always, we're just getting started with this channel, and it would mean the world if you clicked the subscribe button, click like, left a comment on what resonated most for you from this video, and share it with a friend. And until then, I'll see you in the next video.